Let me tell you something, and I want you to sit with this for a second. Because this ain't about headlines, this ain't about viral tweets or cable news shouting matches. This right here is about a shift so powerful, so undeniable, that even the giants of the world are starting to feel the ground tremble beneath their feet. And that tremble, that quake in the global order, that's India rising. Now, I ain't talking about India as it was. I ain't talking about the land of call centers, spices, and tech support. That's old thinking. That's the narrative some folks want to keep telling because it makes them comfortable. But here's the real story. The India we're talking about in 2025, it's sharper, it's bolder, it's unapologetic, it's got ambition in its bones and fire in its soul, and the world, oh, the world's watching. Some are cheering, some are shaking, and some like Trump are nervous. Meanwhile, China's smiling, but even that smile is hiding some tight nerves behind closed doors. See, when a sleeping giant wakes up, everybody looks. But when a giant that was underestimated for decades suddenly stands tall, flexes, and starts setting the rules, that's a whole different game. That's the game India is playing now. Let me paint the picture for you. For decades, global powerhouses walked into every room like they owned the place. The U.S. swaggered in with dollars, China slid in with factories, and Russia rolled in with force. India walked in with culture, philosophy, and humility, and got overlooked every time. But now, that same India is walking in with semiconductors in one hand and intercontinental missiles in the other. Now it's tech, it's tanks, and it's a trillion-dollar economy that's got eyes laser, focused on superpower status. And that's got people uncomfortable, because power rebalancing always makes the comfortable nervous. Now don't get me wrong, Trump's nervous for a reason. The man built his rhetoric on making America great again. But the world has changed. It ain't a one-lane highway anymore. There's traffic coming from every direction, and India's right there, weaving through at full throttle. Trump looks at India and sees a country that don't need to be told what to do. India's making its own choices, shaking hands with whom it wants, building weapons at home, and calling out hypocrisy without batting an eye. That ain't the old India he was used to. See, America loved it when India was the world's back office. When it was cheap labor, fast code, polite nods. But now they're seeing India invest in its own military, its own AI, its own lunar missions, and not asking for anyone's approval. That's not a back office anymore. That's the CEO showing up, and Trump. He's old school, he understands power in terms of dominance, but India's power ain't about dominance. It's about resilience, it's about legacy, it's about rising without stepping on others, but making sure no one steps on you either. That kind of power, that's scarier to the old guards than tanks or nukes, because it can't be bullied, it can't be bought, and it sure as hell won't be ignored. Now let's talk about China. Oh yeah, China's smiling. But don't let that fool you. That's not a smile of amusement. That's a smile of calculation, because they've been watching India closely. They know what's brewing. China's smart. They know India ain't aiming to be like them. India's playing its own game, a slower game, a deeper game. It's not building ghost cities. It's building grassroots. It's not just pushing exports. It's pushing minds, education, innovation, defense. China's been the dragon for decades, spitting fire in the South China Sea, buying up ports across Africa, influencing through debt and diplomacy. But now they look across the Himalayas and see a tiger, lean, hungry, disciplined, and no longer in the shadows. They see a population of 4 billion that's younger, more tech, savvy, and burning with national pride. That tiger ain't roaring yet, but make no mistake, it's watching, and it's ready. You think China ain't worried about the Quad Alliance. You think they didn't notice when India stood its ground in Galwan Valley, when it banned over 200 Chinese apps overnight. That ain't small stuff. That's strategy. That's a nation saying, you come too close, you'll feel the claws. And let's not forget, The world's starting to see it too. The EU, the Gulf, Australia, they all coming to the table with India now, not to lecture, but to collaborate. That's a shift. That's a tilt in the axis. India ain't just rising, it's being invited to rise. And that's what makes this story real. Now here's the part most people don't want to talk about. India didn't get here by accident. This isn't some overnight sensation. This is the result of grind, decades of patience, generations of sacrifice, from the farmers who kept the soil alive to the coders who built the backbones of Silicon Valley, from the Jowans in the icy heights of Siachen to the scientists launching rockets on a shoestring budget. That's the real India, that's the hustle no one sees. But here's the thing that gets me most fired up. India's rise ain't just about GDP or satellites, it's about belief. A belief that you don't have to be Western to be modern. That you don't have to abandon your roots to grow. That you can wear a kurta and run a Fortune 500. That you can chant in Sanskrit and still code in Python. That's power. That's identity. And identity is the one thing no one can outsource. See, the old world order, it wanted India to choose, either be spiritual or be successful, but this new India, it's both. It meditates in the morning and negotiates billion-dollar deals by noon. It worships Lakshmi and still checks stock prices. That duality, that's not confusion, that's completeness, and completeness is what makes other nations pause. You know what I see in this rise. I see a people that stopped waiting for validation. India ain't out here asking the West to clap anymore. It's clapping for itself. It's celebrating its languages, its festivals, its warriors, its thinkers. It's saying, we been here, we never left. You just weren't looking. And now, now the world's got no choice but to look. Let me take you deeper. When the U.S. looks east, they ain't just worried about Russia anymore. They're looking at two giants, China and India, one with a head start, the other with a heart surge, and between the two, a choice. You think the U.S. don't feel the pressure of picking sides. You think Washington doesn't know what it means if India becomes the tech hub of the world, if it replaces Taiwan's chip production. If it becomes the broker in the Middle East instead of just an observer. You bet Trump is nervous, not because he hates India, but because he sees that America ain't the only dream anymore. There's a new dream rising in the East. And young people across Africa, South America, Southeast Asia, they're looking at India now. They're saying, maybe we can do it our way too. That's influence. And influence is the true currency of power. Let's talk about economics for a moment. India's economy is breaking records, fastest growing major economy in the world, startups booming, unicorns popping up left and right, middle class expanding like never before. This isn't a bubble, this is a foundation being laid brick by brick. And when you build from the ground up, you build to last. India's infrastructure push, massive, highways, ports, bullet trains, smart cities. This ain't cosmetic. This is deep work, the kind of development that lasts generations, and it ain't being done with foreign debt chains either. It's being done with purpose. Now you might ask, where's the fear coming from then? It's simple. The world's used to telling India how to walk, but now India's running, and it ain't asking for directions. That's scary to a system built on control. You can't control what you don't understand. And right now, a lot of folks don't understand how India rose so fast, so strong, so sure. And let me tell you, this India's rise ain't meant to make anyone fall. That's the beauty of it. It ain't about domination. It's about determination. It's not conquest. It's confidence. This is a nation saying, we don't want your seat. We'll build our own table. And that's what makes it unstoppable. So yeah, Trump's nervous. Because India won't be told to play second fiddle anymore. China's smiling, but behind closed doors it's adjusting strategies, and the rest of the world, they're waking up. They're watching a once colonized civilization take back its voice, its vision, its value. Now here's what I want to leave you with. This moment is bigger than politics, bigger than economics. It's spiritual, it's cultural, it's historic. This is 4 billion people remembering who they are. And once a people remember their worth, they become unshakable. India is not just rising. India is reminding the world that greatness doesn't always speak with a Western accent, that dignity doesn't require permission, and that the future just might speak Hindi, think in code and meditate in silence. And you know what? That's a future worth watching. That's a future worth respecting. And most of all, that's a future nobody can stop. It marked the birth of India's assertive military doctrine backed by innovation. The 21st century isn't China's or America's. It's multipolar, and India is leading that shift. What you are seeing today is not a fluke, not a coincidence, and certainly not the result of blind luck. This is a moment born from decades of pressure, patience, and preparation. The narrative is shifting. The world is no longer a chessboard with only two players moving their pieces. This is a new century, a new stage, and new voices are speaking. And one of the loudest, clearest, and most impactful voices belongs to India. Let's be honest about the old order. For most of the 20th century, global power was measured in terms of American influence and Soviet resistance. The Cold War split the world into binary blocks: capitalist versus communist, NATO versus Warsaw Pact, East versus West. Even after the collapse of the USSR, a unipolar world emerged where the United States dictated the direction, tone, and pace of global affairs. China, with its rapid economic surge, quickly positioned itself as a counterweight. But both of these models carried a similar assumption, that the future belonged to those who had already dominated the past. India never fit into that frame. It was either too poor, too spiritual, too chaotic, or too neutral to be taken seriously by the superpowers. But what they failed to recognize is that India never stopped building. It never stopped thinking. It never stopped adapting. Beneath the surface of its noisy democracy and diverse social fabric, something fierce was growing. Self-confidence. A belief that the nation didn't need to mimic anyone else to matter. That belief, it's the fuel behind everything that's happening now. India isn't rising because it wants to be like America or outcompete China. India is rising because it finally stopped playing someone else's game. In this multipolar world, power isn't just about who has the biggest military or the largest economy. It's about who can move hearts, shape minds, and form meaningful alliances without coercion. India does not march into nations with troops. It walks in with trade, with tech, with culture, with credibility. And most importantly, it walks in with choice. That's what makes a multipolar world different. It's no longer about compliance, it's about cooperation, and people want to cooperate with India now, not out of fear, but out of trust. That trust wasn't built overnight. It came from India's ability to balance ancient wisdom with modern ambition. From its commitment to democratic values, even when messy, from its willingness to take a stand when necessary and to listen when appropriate, from its refusal to become a proxy for anyone else's agenda. This level-headed maturity is what's tilting the world's center of gravity away from old alliances and towards something new. And at the heart of this shift is India's military doctrine, not just rooted in tradition, but in transformation. For decades, India's defense posture was cautious, defensive, reactive, but something changed in the last decade. The cross-border strikes in 2016, the Balakot airstrikes in 2019, the firm stance during the Ladakh standoff with China. These weren't just military actions, they were statements. They were India saying, we won't wait to bleed anymore, we will respond, we will preempt, we will lead. That was the shift. That was the moment India's military strategy moved from the age-old doctrine of restraint to a doctrine of resolve. And not just resolve in the old sense, resolve backed by indigenous innovation. That's the keyword. Indigenous. India is no longer shopping for weapons. It's designing them, testing them, exporting them. The Akash-NG missile, the Tejas fighter jet, the Agni, the Ikbam. These are not mere tools. These are symbols of sovereignty. Sovereignty is power, and power is no longer just measured in tanks and jets. It's measured in chips, satellites, data centers, and cyber capabilities. And here's where India is playing a masterstroke. While the world's caught up in social media distractions, India's quietly laying fiber optic networks through its remotest villages. It's building quantum computing labs, rolling out 5G, and preparing its space-based communication grid. It's turning its youth into coders, engineers, entrepreneurs, and analysts. The war of the future will be fought as much in code as on land, and India's already on that battlefield. Think about this. For years, the narrative was that Asia's future belonged to China. That it was the factory of the world, the rising dragon. But while China focused on scale, India focused on depth. China built skyscrapers. India built software. China controlled trade routes. India built trust routes. China's rise caused dependency. India's rise is fostering interdependence. That difference matters. It matters more than ever. In Africa, in Latin America, in Southeast Asia, countries are watching India. Not because it's perfect, but because it's relatable. It didn't rise on the back of colonization or exploitation. It rose while lifting its people, brick by brick. Its message isn't be like us. It's rise with us. That's magnetic. That's leadership, and in a multipolar world, that kind of leadership is gold. Now look at the geopolitical chessboard. The U.S. is trying to maintain relevance. China is trying to stretch its influence. Russia is trying to reclaim its past. Europe is trying to find a post-Brexit identity. And right there in the middle, India is quietly becoming the bridge between worlds. It's part of BRICS, part of the Quad, a dialogue partner in the SCO, and a strategic partner with the EU. That's not confusion, that's calculation. India doesn't want to be asterisk in asterisk. Any one campet wants to be the camp others want to join. This is why the 21st century belongs to the multipolar world. Because people are tired of binaries. They're tired of choosing between two extremes. They want options. They want cooperation without colonization, influence without interference, growth without guilt. India represents that. It doesn't have a history of invading others. It doesn't carry the baggage of an empire. What it does carry is 5,000 years of civilization, and now 4 billion people whose aspirations are rising like the morning sun. Those aspirations are not just economic. They're psychological, emotional. A young Indian today doesn't dream of moving abroad. They dream of building at home. That's a fundamental change. For decades, talent flowed out of India. Now, talent is flowing back. Reverse brain drain is real, and with it comes not just knowledge but confidence, pride, ownership, that mental shift. It's more important than any policy document or defense white paper. And that's what makes India dangerous, in the best possible way. Because when a nation starts believing in itself at scale, you can't stop it. You can slow it down, you can challenge it, but you can't erase it. Not anymore. India's rise also marks a cultural renaissance. Bollywood, classical music, literature, Ayurveda, yoga. These aren't sideshows. These are soft power missiles. They don't destroy. They attract. They don't invade. They inspire. India is showing the world that influence doesn't have to come from domination. It can come from demonstration. Even in the military realm, India is moving from importing to exporting. Defense exports have grown exponentially in the last 5 years. The world is buying from India, not just because it's cheaper, but because it's reliable. That reliability is currency, and India is investing it wisely. It's doing joint ventures with Israel on drone tech. It's collaborating with France on nuclear energy. It's negotiating oil deals with the Middle East on its own terms. And it's doing all this while keeping its strategic autonomy intact. That's balance, that's leverage, that's what makes America nervous and China careful, because neither of them can control India, not politically, not economically, not ideologically. India will trade with America, but not bow. It will partner with Russia, but not be pulled. It will talk to China, but not retreat. That's the new playbook. Assertiveness, not aggression. Dialogue, not dependence. Leadership, not followership. So as the old powers fight for control of the narrative, India is writing a new one, not with slogans, but with systems, not with arrogance, but with authenticity. And in this new narrative, power is no longer about domination. It's about direction. And right now, India is setting that direction. This is what happens when a civilization awakens, not just economically or militarily, but spiritually. When it remembers who it is, what it stands for, what it won't stand for, and when it's ready to show the world not just how to rise, but how to rise right, because the future is not a competition, it's a chorus. And India's voice is no longer in the background, it's leading the song.